Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about some interesting statements that have come out from Jim Carrey regarding the Sonic the Hedgehog redesign. Now, if you'll remember all the way back to Halloween of last year, there was a big controversy. Obviously, that was when the redesign was announced, the trailer and everything like that, or no, maybe not when it was announced, but it was when it was already announced that they were going to redesign the character. And Jim Carrey was asked about it, and he gave a statement that basically sounded a lot like he was saying that the studio was caving to public pressure and they're ruining the artistic vision of the director. And I will read the direct quote here because I do have it in front of me. Jim Carrey says, "I believe in auteurs. I believe in creatives. We do what we can do, and then technology is going to have its way, and people's opinions are going to have their way. And who knows what it's going to turn into? You just become their Frankenstein monster at some point, right?" And basically, he's asking the idea of, he believes more in the artistic vision as opposed to the what the masses want. Let's put it that way. Saying that they just become a Frankenstein because they're not themselves anymore. They're just the composite of other people's opinions. So it was a very direct jab at them. Perceivingly caving to what he believes to be a hate mob, or just a bunch of people, a bunch of pissed off toxic fans that wanted it redesigned, and that he should have stayed. The director should have stayed with the original model. So that's why it's kind of strange to hear him have the next statement. Although I can attribute it to possibly because they are in the middle of the press tour for this film, and it had a very, very, very good opening weekend. It actually is now the top video game movie for first weekend gross. So that is something to kind of hang your hat on, especially in this day and age when they're trying to adapt video games. You need to get more and more money. You need to get better and better films. So that's a step forward for Hollywood as an industry to be able to get something right in terms of translating a video game into a film. But the whole thing is that he was on the press tour for this. I don't believe this was. I don't remember exactly where they state this quote actually came from in terms of where Jim Carrey was at the time or anything, but it's it's an interesting little thing to note that now that the movie's, it could just be a corporate thing. Now that the movie's coming out, he's obviously, he's bound by certain things to say good things about the movie. You don't want to disparage the movie you were just in. It's bad for business. But at the same time, he still had this kind of divisive commentary about, 4 or 5 months ago, talking about the same type of thing. So I will now read the quote that Jim Carrey came out with the other day, Friday, I believe. And it goes as follows. "It turned out to be a co-op where everybody was in on the creation. I think everybody felt good about it, ultimately because Jeff Fowler, who was the director, had no ego involved at all. He just went. These people grew up with it, and it's important to them that we get it right. And I think it was just as much a better, just a much better movie because of it." Now that's interesting, and I find that to be the correct state of mind in terms of doing something like this, because this wasn't a situation where this was just this hate mob of Sonic fans that were just bombarding, the studio and the director and the actors on Twitter and other social media sites and stuff like that. This was a situation where the original design would have given children nightmares. Like, that thing was horrible. I think the tagline I used for my video on it was, "What the hell did I just watch?" And if I watch that original trailer again, I'm probably going to think the same thing. Like, who thought that was a good idea? And, from some behind the scenes stuff, some people are saying Jeff Fowler wanted that design. Some people are saying, he obviously wanted the design because it's in the film, but some people were saying he was the reason why that design was picked specifically over, a more classic interpretation, and a lot of people warned him, and yada, 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 but none of that is necessarily substantiated. So I can't really count that as a fact, but it's not improbable, but the thing is that this guy got it right. He saw that people hated it. He saw that people were terrified of it because it was a horrifying image. And he changed it. He changed it to something that was widely acceptable, and the movie was a hit. And this is what Hollywood needs to start seeing more and more of, is not necessarily directors bending the knee, but directors knowing when they fucked up. Because again, that's the major problem with Hollywood, is nobody is willing to admit when they screw something up. Nobody's willing to say, I'm sorry, we're going to do better. That almost never happens. And now it has happened, and it has probably saved a film. Because I guarantee you, if that hedgehog looked the way it did in the original trailers before they did the redesign, children would be running out of that theater screaming. That wouldn't be... You'd have to market that thing as a horror movie. Yeah, it's not a good aesthetic. I don't need a photorealistic Sonic the Hedgehog. That just seems like that's going to cause problems. And it did, at least for the Jeff Fowler and then the other people involved in the production. And it did cost extra money to do, but they're obviously appreciative of that on the hind end, as were the fans, because now you get the best of both worlds. I think studio people need to look at this. They need to say, look, and more specifically directors, because let's be honest about this. The way Jim Carrey describes this, and again, this could be a PR thing, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. The truthfulness of it, not the fact that it was said, is that Jeff Fowler came in and said these people grew up with it, and it's important to them that we get it right. That is a line that should be taken and enshrined on a plaque and put in front of a statue of Sonic the Hedgehog as proof that if you fix your fuck-ups and admit that you screwed up, that you can still make money and save what looked to be a doomed production. Okay? When this thing was coming out, the amount of red flags that were against it. You had the fact that it was a video game movie, number one. Now that was against it to begin with before they even pitched the damn thing. The photorealistic Sonic people that were like, oh my god, that's horrifying, and didn't realize the remaking of the redesign happened. The people that were pissed at the studio for bending the knee, even though they probably wouldn't have made a very large portion of the ticket sales, because most of them probably don't watch movies, they just activist themselves online all day. They wouldn't have gone to see it. There was a decent amount of stuff going against this movie, and it still made all that money. And again, I have to attribute it to Jeff Fowler actually growing a brain and changing something that should be changed. And I think more directors should follow that kind of suit of, if you really mess up something bad and people find out about it and it's true, you should probably change it. If not behind the scenes, then make a public statement. Because that's what Jeff Fowler did. He made a public statement. And he made a statement to his cast saying what he said in public before. Or what he said in public after the fact. I believe this would have been after the fact of the start of the redesign. And I think he went about it in a good way. He included all the people. He didn't say, I'm just going to redesign it by myself. He included Jim Carrey. I'm sure he included James Marsden and the other people that were involved in the production as well, as is stated by Jim's statement. So he went about it a right way. Sonic was redesigned appropriately so that he was acceptable to audiences, and it showed a result. Now, I didn't think it was going to be that much of a result, honestly. I didn't think it was going to break that type of a record. And by the way, it brought in, I believe, $57 million in the first weekend. And so it's on a good track to hit around the 300 to 400 million mark, which I believe is what I stated it at in, I think 300 million was what I stated it at in my Will It Fail video. But that hinged the entire production, and I think it was right of them to do. And it's more interesting because if this statement is truthful from Jim Carrey, then Jeff Fowler was successfully able to appeal to Jim Carrey and get him to see that no, not all of these things are just people that want to rally and hate on an artist's vision. It's some of them are people that really just care about the product that you are adapting, or the material that you're adapting, and they want to see it done right. And I think the idea is that you have to sift through that to find the people that are making sense, versus the people that are just doing it to be dicks. Because it's the internet. you're gonna have trolls. It's just how it works. But if you sift through that and you make sure you pick and choose, if somebody's giving you positive feedback or somebody's giving you constructive feedback, I should say is probably the better term to use for that. Constructive feedback on your production, then read it, take it into consideration. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to say you have to do it, unless the studio is. But if it makes sense and you think that maybe somebody thought of something a little bit better than maybe what you had in mind, then go with it. It's not compromising your artistic vision if you think it makes the product better or if you think it makes the film better. Honestly, if you're talking about artistic vision with a movie about Sonic the Hedgehog, I think you're kind of stretching artistic vision a little bit. But again, that's just kind of my opinion on this. It's interesting to kind of hear Jim Carrey flip flop on this a bit, but I'm hoping this is just the idea that maybe he's turned a new leaf because I really do enjoy Jim Carrey. I like to see him in other movies. I might watch Sonic just because I really do like Jim Carrey. But it's something interesting to think about. In the comments below, I'd like you to know, do you think that Jim Carrey maybe has turned a new leaf in terms of his opinion on how fandoms are and how things act in Hollywood, interactions with fans? Or do you think that he's kind of just doing this as a PR thing because he's on the press junket for the film? Again, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And as usual, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?